Hello, my name is Allison Shontz, and I'm going to analyze a textbook from my content area for my SEC 352 class. The name of the textbook is Magruder's American Government Pretense Hall by William A. McClanahan. This textbook can be used in an American government class and is used in grades 9 through 12. First, I'm going to analyze the standards from the Social Studies category under the list of Kentucky Core Academic Standards. The first standard that will be covered is Standard 2.14. Students understand the democratic principles of justice, equality, responsibility, and freedom and apply them to real-life situations. I used the Likert scale to interpret my key question by using this standard. How often are basic government principles represented in the end of chapter assessments, and can they be applied to real-life situations? I base this on a scale where if there were 5 or more terms or objectives that represented the basic government principles in the chapter assessments, then I placed it in the strongly agree category. If there were 4 examples, then it was placed in the agree category. 3 neutral, 2 disagree, and 0 to 2 examples strongly disagree. Based on this scale, each chapter in this unit received a strongly agree assessment. The next standard that I analyzed was Standard 2.15. Students can accurately describe various forms of government and analyze issues that relate to the rights and responsibilities of citizens in a democracy. I again used the Likert scale to demonstrate how this standard applied to my key question, which is, using this standard, how often do terms concerning the rights and responsibilities of American citizens come up in the end of chapter assessments and beginning of chapter objectives? Using the Likert scale and interpreting the objectives and questions in this unit, I inferred that all of the chapters fell under the strongly agree category on the Likert scale. So based on this analysis, this standard is accurately displayed in this unit. The last Kentucky Core Academic Standard that I analyzed was 2.20. Students understand and analyze and interpret historical events, conditions, trends, and issues to develop historical perspective. I used the Likert scale again to demonstrate how this standard applied to my key question for analysis, which was, using this standard, how often do critical questions concerning historical events and issues relate to the material in each chapter? Using excerpts from each chapter and comparing them to the objectives for each chapter in the assessments, I inferred that each chapter again fell under the strongly agree category for each chapter and accurately demonstrated this standard through its content. This next section will be analyzing diversity and how diversity is represented in this unit. The indicators that I am using to analyze diversity are race, gender, and age range, represented in pictures and examples throughout this unit. The first question that I used to interpret diversity in the unit was through pictures in specific sections in the text. To what degree is race represented relative to the population of the United States? The sample I used to compare the population of the United States currently is based on information from the U.S. Census Bureau. The key question that I used to interpret race diversity in this unit is, what percentage of illustrations and text accurately displayed race? I analyzed images based on skin color, eye shape, and hair texture. My point of view is that this book does not accurately display racial diversity compared to the U.S. population because although Caucasians were the largest group represented, and this correlates with the current U.S. population, Hispanics represented a smaller portion of the diversity than is represented in data found from the U.S. Census Bureau. Although there was little to no representation of groups such as Native Americans and Middle Eastern in this unit, my interpretation is that this unit is not a racially diverse unit and does not accurately display race relative to the population of the U.S. The next indicator of diversity that I used for analysis is gender, and the question that I asked was, is gender evenly represented throughout the unit? I used a bar graph to represent the data that I gathered from each chapter and inferred through pictures seen through the unit that each seemed to represent males slightly more than females. Each chapter was distributed on around a 40 to 60 ratio distribution scale where males represented from 52 to 58% of pictures, and females represented between 44 to 47% of pictures. Based on this data, it can be inferred that gender is reasonably distributed evenly when it is taken into account the content that is being covered. Historically, men were the main representatives that framed the American government system, and since this unit covers the federal court system and constitutional freedoms, it is expected to have a more male than female representation. Based on this data, I have inferred that gender diversity is evenly distributed in this unit. The last diversity dimension I used to analyze diversity in this text was age range. The key question that I used for interpretation is age range in this unit evenly distributed relative to the time period represented. The indicators that I used to interpret these differences was basing illustrations in the text on pictures that represented people from ages 0 to 18, 18 to 60, and 60 and older. I classified these categories as children, middle-aged people, and older people. I used the bar graph to illustrate the data I collected and found that through pictures used in the unit, the age ranges were not evenly distributed because there was little representation of the younger category, whereas the middle-aged and older categories took up the majority of pictures represented. From the data I collected, I have inferred that this unit does not show an accurate distribution of age ranges in the United States based on census records. The last resource I used to interpret the viability of this textbook was by typing in excerpts from the book to figure out the Lexile score, which is a scale based on the readability of the text. I broke it down by typing in a paragraph from each chapter in the unit and getting the Lexile score for each chapter in the unit, then adding them together and getting the average to make one final Lexile score. I used the website readability/score.com to gather this data, and what I figured out is that Chapter 18 got a score of 10.5, meaning that it falls slightly over a 10th grade reading level. Chapter 19 received a score of 14.5, Chapter 20 a score of 12.6, Chapter 21 a score of 15.4. When averaged together, the book received an overall score of 13.3, which is slightly above a high school level. This book could be used in classes for gifted and talented government students. That is the end of my textbook analysis presentation. Thank you for viewing.